What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here, back with a preview for the Memorial. This tournament being played at Muirfield Village for the entire history of the tournament. So if you're looking for course history, there you go. Pretty easy this week. If you have not seen this video series before, what's taking you so long? No, just kidding. If you haven't seen it before, we're just going to run through some players that I think are interesting for this week. We'll talk about some key stats and maybe some Vegas odds and stuff like that, and we'll see how that goes. So let's not waste any more time. Let's look at those key stats. Again, if you've never seen this before, I determine what stats are the most important for this week. I add them all up. I categorize them, add them all up, put a little secret sauce in there, and come up with a score for each one of my players. The higher the score, the better, of course. 100 is a perfect score. 50 is the average. This sheet, along with, you see a bunch of other tabs down here at the bottom with course history, performance, all that good stuff, is available on dfsondemand.com. All right, so let's talk about the key stats for this week. Wow, Nashville just scored. If you're watching the finals, they just tied it up. Okay, sorry. Shots gained off the tee. I was looking back and reading, previews from last year and seeing, oh man, you got to hit fairways. You can't be in the rough. The rough is deadly here. And that wasn't really the case, at least what I was looking at. So here are how many fairways were hit for the top 10 golfers last year. Only 3 guys were in the top 20. The year before that, there were a couple in here, but guys were easily like 30th, 50th in fairways hit and still putting up really good performances. The year before that, it looked like you had to be a little more accurate, but it's not like if you hit fairways, it's the ultimate key to success. Like some of these previews that I were reading kind of led me to believe. So kind of stayed away from that. I didn't think it was a prerequisite to hit a ton of fairways, but I did want something off the tee, so I just went with strokes gained off the tee. On the flip side of that, I do believe that this is very much a second shot course. Guys who tend to do well here, they can fire darts, they can throw at pins. So strokes gained approach popped up for me. And then what you'll notice here is this is pretty different for most weeks. Is we have actually a stat for par 3s, par 4s, and par 5s. And the reason is because there are stats this week to kind of put each one of those in little buckets, which we don't really ever see. So for example, par 3s between 175 and 200 yards, all 4 of them are in this range. Or at least we'll play within this a couple of yards all week. So it's rare that we see all 4 par 3s within a specific range. So since we have it, we're going to use it. Par 4s between 450 and 500 yards. There will either be 6 out of 10, or some days, depending on what they go with yardages, 7 out of 10 of the par 4s will be in this range. Again, that's a lot. So since we have it, we're going to use it. And then par 5 scoring, we haven't seen this in a couple weeks because there's only been 2 par 5s. The last couple of weeks there have been par 70s. But if we look back at last year here, here are all of the holes, how many DraftKings points were scored on each, and you can see these guys are going to make their money on the par 5s here. Here we go. So 40% of the DraftKings points are being scored on the par 5s. So on those 4 holes, that's where 40% of your DraftKings points are going to come from. So you're obviously going to need to play those very well. So I threw in the par 5 scoring, and then, of course, just because it's DraftKings scoring, birdie or better is basically always going to be in here. All right, with all that being said, let's kick it over to the lobby and talk about some of these guys. All right, lots of big names here in this field, everyone gearing up for the U.S. Open. I don't think I need to talk too much about a lot of these top guys. You should have plenty of exposure to all of them. Dustin Johnson, best player on the planet at the moment. I cannot find a reason to not play him. John Rahm, I guess we've talked about this before. The only concern is like, oh, he hasn't played this course before. Well, he hasn't played any of these courses before, and he's just absolutely shredding the tour. So why are we going to stay away from him again this week? Those 2 guys, it's actually pretty rare that the top 2 guys in salary are the top 2 in my rankings. But that's the case this week. So Rahm and Johnson both check out. As far as my stats go, they both dominate. Both really high scores, pretty significantly above the rest of the field as well. So I have no concerns here. I'm going to be playing absolutely plenty of them. Spieth will be great. That's fine. No concerns there. When we start getting down here, I think is where we get to see some differentiators. So Jason Day, I think, is another, again, a really good GPP play. So if you look at his key stats, he doesn't really check out too well for me. He's my number 25 golfer. But this is a little misleading, I think. So just because, he's had such a rough year with his, dealing with his mom's illness and probably not practicing a lot and just not having a good year in general, his stats have not been that great. So that hurts him when I'm compiling these stats and trying to do, something like a ranking. He's probably an outlier that the stats are against him more than they should be. The last time he teed it up, we saw those flashes of greatness, right? He gets to a playoff. He does miss kind of a little crappy 4-foot putt in the playoff to lose to Billy Horschel. But, second place at the Byron Nelson, that to me would think that Jason Day is getting back on track. This is essentially a home game for him. He hasn't had a ton of success here, believe it or not. So the guy lives in Columbus, Ohio. This is in Dublin, Ohio, which is like 20 minutes away. Hasn't had a ton of success here in the past, but I think that just kind of is going to continue to drive his ownership down. There's so many other big names. Jason Day just feels like the guy who's going to be the least owned here. Matsuyama as well. So, we haven't seen a lot of Matsuyama lately, right? So he played the Masters, he played the Players. He's played twice in the last nearly 2.5 months. So not a lot of Matsuyama talk recently. But his record here is pretty insane, or pretty good. So, okay, he's my third ranked golfer. Let's see, misses the cut last year, but the 2 other times he played it, he had a T5 and a win. And then he actually is, for all the players who have played this tournament at least 3 times, he is the best all-time scoring average, or I guess I shouldn't say all-time, in this field. So guys in this field who have played it at least 3 times, Hideki's scoring average, 69.8, is the best. And that's pretty incredible considering he missed a cut, which means the other 2 times he didn't miss a cut, he was absolutely scorching and went really low. So I'm interested to see what his ownership number is going to be. Someone who I'm not interested in seeing their ownership number is going to be Matt Kuchar. So if I'm making cash games, or if I'm making cash lineups, which honestly I don't really ever do, I play a lot of GPPs, which is kind of the vibe you get on this video series. But Kuchar is just got to be the absolute chalk here, I imagine. I imagine he's going to be the highest cash game player of the week. T9 and T12 in his last 2 times out, that Kuchar is like the king of making the cut and then backdooring himself to top 10 or something like that. But just an absolutely sparkling record here at the Memorial. So second best scoring average, you can see he's missed 1 cut in his life in 11 tries, and he has 6 top 10s. If we run back his year by year, here he is, T4 last year, T26, T15, and a win in just the last 4. If you go back even further, he just rattles off even more top 10s and more top 15s. So no reason to think he's not going to continue that again this week. So not sure if he is your game theory GPP play of the week where you're going to get him at a low ownership. Highly doubt that. But he'd be the first guy I plug into a cash game. And then we get to Rickie Fowler. So Fowler is interesting because he's the first guy that pops up where maybe his price is not right. So let's look at his key stats here. So for me, he's my 4th ranked golfer. Excellent on approach shots, excellent in par 5s, and just absolutely makes a ton of birdies and eagles. Okay, so he's my right here. This column or this row. My 4th ranked golfer. Despite that, he is priced at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He's the 10th highest priced golfer. So we will get to a little bit more on Rickie Fowler in a minute. But he just does everything really well. He's a guy who I'll be rostering quite a bit of this week, and we'll just hang on to that and talk more about him in a second. Oh, you know what? Before we move on, Fowler is really interesting because I like him metrics wise. I like him with my key stats, but he's been terrible here, which I think is going to be one of these rare opportunities where we don't see this a lot, where there's a guy who I think is clear value, and he ends up being low ownership. I don't think we really ever see that, but I'm wondering if Fowler and the fact that he's missed 3 straight cuts here is going to how much that's going to impact his ownership. So we might actually get that kind of rare combination this week. I mean, if I'm looking for anything, we can go back 5 or 6 years. He did have a second place here. He had a T22, but recently it's been really, really bad. So really interested to see how that pans out. And as the week progresses, I'm recording this on Monday night. As the week progresses, wondering how much buzz is going to be on Fowler. So keep an eye out on Twitter. I'll see if I can get a good feel for the industry this week. All right, Tony Finau, price is wrong, man. Price is wrong. Continues to be wrong. I know it's a strong field, but Tony Finau is just playing the best golf of his life. T29 last week, then a T13, T3. I mean, 4 top 10s this year. He pops up on my key stats, and if you're wondering, like, do these key stats mean anything? I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to get enough of a sample size for it to matter. They've been really good this year. They were really good last week, so here they are last week. So here were my scores, and then here were the players' final finishes. So here's my top 12 golfers. You can see 6 guys inside the top 10. And Finau, who actually, after the second round was in 10th place, he kind of faded. But this was a really good performance, and this is the type of thing I've seen from these stats all year. So still trying to gauge a big enough sample size to say how good these really are, but I've been trusting them, and it's been working out. And Finau just continues to pop up here in terms of my key stats. And then you just go to his performance, and of course, right, he's played it twice, T11, T8. So again, I think the ownership is going to be fairly large, but the pricing, I don't know what's going on DraftKings with the pricing. It's incorrect. Okay. All right, here's somebody interesting at 7,700. So starting to get down into that range where we're looking for these flyers to kind of swoop in, get you a top 20, get you a top 10, maybe win you a GPP here. So I think Kevin Streelman's really interesting. And with Streelman, we're looking at, very small sample sizes to try to get converging trends, right? So we're just trying to get out in front of maybe him dropping a top 10. T18 last week, okay, really impressive showing. Bookended the week with 68s. He MDF'd the players, but at least made the cut there. So that was interesting to see. And then if we go back to his history here, so when you look at my chart, it's sorted by average finish. So a guy who's missed a lot of cuts is going to be way down this list, of course. But Streelman's is a little bit deceptive. So he missed these 3 straight cuts here in, what would that be, 2014, 2013, and 2012. But if you look at the last 2 years, it's T18, T8, and then the year before the 3 missed cuts, it was a T7. So he's had 3 really high finishes here, and he's playing likely, I mean, this isn't saying a lot for Kevin Streelman, but likely playing the best golf of his season. So this is the type of guy who is trending in the right direction, has had good history here in the past, and we're trying to jump on before he, surprises everybody with a top 10. And then I think another guy down here that you could do much worse than is David Lingmerth. So, pretty uneventful season. And again, here is another guy who, let's take this small sample of the last 3 times he's teed it up. T18, another guy who MDF'd at the Players, shot a 78 on Saturday. Listen, a lot of guys shot 78. A lot of guys shot 80 on Saturday and Sunday. John Rahm, Jason Day, Justin Rose, Rickie Fowler. Like, those were guys all dropped huge numbers on either Saturday or Sunday. And then a really impressive close here at the Dean and DeLuca, where he goes 67-67 the final 2 rounds to finish in a T12. So Lingmerth is really interesting. And then you can see, let's look up his history here. All right, so here he is. Has never missed a cut. T27 in his title defense last year, which means he won it in 2015. Of all the guys who played at least 3 rounds, Streelman has the 3rd best scoring average in the field. So again, here's a guy, he doesn't have the defending champions tag on him. He is playing pretty well right now, hard to argue with that, and he's got a lot of good vibes, a lot of good juju here. So let's see if he can continue that. All right, this has basically already gone too long. I should probably make another video of like just the strict value, like the super deep punt plays, because there's a lot of them this week. So I think, where is he? So there's Lingmerth. Oh, here we go. Pat Perez, Billy Horschel. That's damn near criminal what their prices are. Kevin Tway's been outstanding and seems like no one cares at all. He's $6,500. A lot of good deep plays here, but I don't want to get too much into it. We're already pretty long. I'll tweet out some plays later. But I do want to wrap up with something that we do, which is to look at the odds here. So again, this is the odds to actually win the tournament and then comparing that to their salary. These should correlate pretty closely, and where we can take advantage is where they do not. I don't have any top 5 or top 10 numbers yet. Those haven't been released yet, so I'll update this spreadsheet when I get them. But just a couple of things to point out here. So this is the note on Rickie Fowler. Better odds to win than Brooks Koepka and Matt Kuchar, and he's $500 and $800 cheaper than both of those guys. Justin Thomas and Kevin Kisner, both underpriced at probably, well, $1,600 cheaper than Patrick Reed, who has the same odds to win this thing. Here's the note about Billy Horschel and Pat Perez. So, actually, here's what's funny. So, Pat Perez and Billy Horschel, probably both underpriced. But even with that being said, they're Horschel's 6,700 and 66 to 1 to win. And Perez, who's still underpriced, 6,800 and 80 to 1 to win. So that would shine Billy Horschel in a light of being significantly underpriced here. And I don't disagree with that. So there's a couple of guys that jump out that probably have more built-in value for you if you're interested in investing. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below or tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand. Talk to you guys soon, and good luck.